Hey listeners, today I had on Lucas Bruder, CEO of Jito Labs. Jito is one of Solana's most core infrastructure teams, and if you transact on Solana, chances are that that transaction will go through Jito's block engine for handling transactions. But last week, Jito announced it would be overhauling its transaction architecture with its new block assembly marketplace, or BAM. This is going to be one of the most consequential upgrades to Solana infrastructure ever. Lucas and Jito think BAM will help Solana cut down on things like sandwich attacking and help apps quote tighter spreads to compete with upstart chains like Hyperliquid. To hear about how, let's get into the episode. This episode is brought to you by Katana, a DeFi-first chain built for deep liquidity and high yield. You'll be hearing more from them later in the show. Nothing said on Lightspeed is a recommendation to buy or sell any investments or products. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and the views expressed by anyone on the show are solely their opinions, not financial advice or necessarily the views of Blockworks. Our hosts, guests, and the Blockworks team may hold positions in the company's funds or projects discussed. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lightspeed. I'm your host, Jack Kubanek, joined today by Lucas Bruder, CEO of Jito Labs, which just unveiled BAM, one of the largest upgrades to Solana transaction processing ever. So I'm very excited to chat with him about this. Lucas, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks. Yeah, we've been working hard on this for a while, so excited to dive in.
So BAM, block assembly marketplace, new architecture for Solana transactions. That's kind of the headline to this episode. But you know, when you and I were speaking about BAM for the article we did on Blockworks, it was kind of interesting to hear you reflect a little bit on just the history of Jito. And my impression was that you didn't necessarily expect Jito to become as core to Solana's infrastructure as it is today. I think 85+% of all stake runs on Jito's Solana client. So I'd be curious just to get like a little oral history of Jito from you. And did you expect Jito to become such a core piece of the puzzle for Solana?
Yeah, I think I did in like a different way than it is today. My co-founder Zano and I started Jito in 2021, and the original idea was like slightly different, but basically the same in that we kind of thought that there would be a lot of MEV on Solana. It's a very fast, high throughput chain, very low fees. That typically means that there's a lot of spam. And so we just love the Solana architecture too, like the team a lot. And so that's kind of where we decided to focus our time on. So basically, him and I were doing a lot of research on MEV, probably mostly focused on like arbitrage and things like that. And I would say like started building out the team in late 2021, early 2022. And I would say the original kind of vision of it was to try to minimize spam by essentially running these auctions off chain. And we would basically run a bunch of simulations, try to predict what would happen. People could basically participate in this auction, and it would essentially find the transactions that pay the most and send those to the validator. So yeah, we launched in 2022, right before it was kind of the bear market. I think the top was like 2021 at breakpoint for Solana launched, and then we went into a pretty deep bear that I think everyone kind of remembers, and that was like 2 weeks after we announced it. So basically nothing was happening on Solana. There wasn't really that much trading activity, not a ton of arbitrage or anything like that. We had like 3 or 4% of stake running at the time. And basically slowly through like 2023, 2024, we started to really grow the network effects of the validator and start to make validators a lot more money. Still focusing a lot on MEV, so like arbitrage, liquidation, stuff like that. And I would say like things really started kicking off in that probably the end of 2023, I would say. We did our airdrop in December 2024, and if you look at like the charts and everything, it's just like straight up since then. There's of course a lot of other airdrops that added to that, but I would say that's when we're like, okay, this is like picking up a lot of steam. And then I would say like then there's the whole ore mining and like the networking issues and stake weighted QoS and some performance bottlenecks in like the Solana core code that are mostly fixed right now, but it was really hard to land transactions. So basically people just started sending to us, and the original audience that we envisioned was just like not what we ended up getting. So I would say like the core piece that we didn't really predict is just like people using us to send a lot of transactions, a large amount of transactions flowing through the network in Jito. And it's been great, but definitely like kind of started rethinking everything in the end of 2024. And that's kind of what led us to BAM.
So if I'm summarizing this correctly, you initially look at Solana, you say, okay, there's lots of timing games on this very fast and cheap chain. Sophisticated users will want these MEV modifications that Jito can offer. But since at times it's been incredibly difficult just to land transactions on Solana when there's a lot of demand, you became sort of a place where lots of Solana transactions get routed through. Like, more often than not, if you're trading as a user, it'll go through Jito's block engine.
Yeah, I would say that we didn't necessarily, I guess I generally agree with that we didn't necessarily see any timing games when we first started, but we definitely had theories that like, okay, there's going to be a lot of transactions on here, and the fees are super cheap. I don't even think there was like a fee market at the time. So it was just like very, very primitive. And we decided to focus there and like build something that was a little fancier than that.
Incubated by Polygon and GSR, Katana is something different, a purpose-built DeFi chain that's focused on giving the best experience possible. It does this by sustainably generating deep liquidity and sustainable, real yield. Katana is built from the ground up, with DeFi mechanics to keep your bags from just sitting idle. All you need to do is use your favorite protocol, and Katana mechanisms do the rest of the work for you. Katana is launching with a notable ecosystem of primitives, assets, and partners including Morpho, Sushi, Lombard, Chainlink, and Yearn. Katana is a DeFi-first chain, built for deep liquidity and real yield, by redirecting chain revenue back to active DeFi users. The 1 billion CAT campaign is live. Bridge and deposit directly into vaults in one simple click, and start earning immediately on your ETH, BTC, USD, and more. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions apply. Do your own research. So it's the end of 2024. Due to, some of the Solana network's congestion issues and so forth, Jito's become very central in how people, I guess, are trying to get transactions to land on the network. And you're mulling your next move, which eventually becomes BAM. So walk me through what the considerations were. Were there other directions you thought about going with Jito, and why you settled with BAM, and then what BAM is?
Yeah. I would say that like one thing is we were starting to look on a multi-year time horizon, and it's like, okay, we built this tech stack. We were just like fighting fires 24/7 because just people were abusing it. And we started to look out like, how fast is Solana going to be in 3 years or 4 years? And started to realize that the current things that we were doing and like the current architecture wasn't going to scale to like 2K, 5K, 10K TPS. So we wanted to make our system faster, and also we wanted to make things more transparent too. The block engine is all closed source, and we just wanted to build something that was transparent. I would say we also wanted to decentralize a little bit, just because that is yeah, there's a lot that goes through the block engine, and I think that if we can open source it and try to decentralize it, it would just be a lot better for the network. People can make modifications to it that are hopefully positive for the network. And so then it's like, okay, how do we actually decentralize this? How do you know that people are running what they say they're running? And then started to go down like the TE rabbit hole and saw what Flashbots is doing with BuilderNet. So we talked to them a little bit and started doing our research. And I would also say that we wanted to like try to focus less on MEV and more on value creation. So we have this infrastructure. We've learned a lot on the engineering side. We've been talking to a lot of users and applications, and like, what can we actually build that users and applications on Solana want? So I would say it's like the main reasons for starting BAM would be like open sourcing it, more transparency, trying to decentralize it, trying to get people to like modify it and focus on creating value for applications. And yeah, basically we created BAM, which is it's a newer, like a proposal that we're making to change like the way that transactions are kind of sequenced on the network to provide more privacy, more transparency, try to decentralize what we do a little bit, and then just focus on value creation. So how, what do people want, and can we build something that they will find valuable? So, and then I would, yeah, the transparency is pretty important too. So like making sure that people understand what's going on with their transactions. So yeah, BAM tries to solve a lot of problems that we saw with our current architecture, and then also on Solana itself.
Mm-hmm. So maybe as a window into what BAM is and explaining it, let's just start very broad. So currently you have the Jito Solana client. It's that kind of the original Solana client, but forked with some MEV modifications. And the vast majority of Solana validators currently use Jito Solana. My understanding is that in the coming weeks or months, there will be an upgraded version of that is like the BAM Jito Solana client, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the most basic difference to Solana. Is a lot of validators will probably be, well, it'll be interesting to see how many. I would assume a lot will be switching over to this upgraded Jito Solana client. Once you're a validator running that BAM client, Lucas, what is different from the kind of block engine that exists today and the current Jito Solana client versus BAM?
Yeah. So you can kind of think of like BAM as there's the main Solana kind of scheduler that's in there. I think they have two different versions. People write their own, and then FireDancer has a few different variations. It's basically that scheduler is running on a server and is trying to sequence transactions, and then it will stream those transactions, and it's doing all the sequencing inside of TEs. And for those that don't know, TEs are trusted execution environments. Basically, it's like an encrypted part of a processor where you can't actually like read the contents of what's going on inside. It also provides attestations, so you can say like, okay, this image hash is running, and you'll be able to go to the BAM repo and like look at. You'll be able to like match the hashes, so you know what version's running. So yeah, that will be doing the sequencing, and then it will forward the packets to the validator, and the validator will execute them in FIFO. So there's like a few technical changes there, but essentially I'll try to keep it a little higher level because I like to get down in the weeds a lot. But essentially, like the sequencing of these transactions is happening inside of a server or inside of a system that is fully encrypted, and it you can basically verify the code that's running, so you know the sequencer and like the code that's running and how it works and everything. And then by pulling it out, we can basically iterate super fast on it, and provide the transparency that you don't get. And then the other thing is plugins, which a lot of people have questions on. So yeah, that's kind of it at like a super high level.
Yeah, and it's an interesting, maybe one more high level comment is just that kind of the whole ball game is the way that transactions are ordered, which you wouldn't think. It's like, my transaction makes it to the blockchain, I get to make the trade I want to make. But within a block, all these transactions that are included, there's a large amount of value that's created or lost for different stakeholders based on, does my fart coin swap get in at the beginning of the block or the end of the block? And you can get into things like sandwich attacking when, that order flow is manipulated in a way that it shouldn't be. So it kind of sounds like a minor thing of changing the way that transactions are sequenced, but it's actually very important for, who wins and who loses in the Solana trading game.
Yeah. And yeah, it will be like fully open source, so people will be able to understand what's going on now, where today it's like the attribution is extremely difficult. I think you've probably seen like sandwich.me from Ghost Log's team. There's just a lot of games being played that are very hard to figure out what they are and where things are happening. And the goal here is to try to, one, prevent those games, but two, if they're happening, then it will be pretty obvious and you'll be able to shine a light on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's sort of the significance here. Let's start with TEEs. Is that how it's said in the industry? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not T. Okay. TEEs. A user sends a transaction and it goes to Jito, the Jito network, and then it is inside of a TEE. But this is not on chain, right? So can you explain what a TEE is and why this is something that users should basically trust to take in their transactions?
Yeah. So real quick on the first point, they won't actually need to like even know it's there. You will be, if you want to use it, you can. Like if you want to send to it, you can. But for most users, it'll just appear like a validator on the network, so they don't really even know it's there. And so yeah, it doesn't like break the composability of the network or anything like that. It's kind of just transparently running. But yeah, TEs, they've been around for a long time. They're in basically every like modern server grade processor has them. Apple Macs and iPhones and watches have them. AWS has like Nitro enclaves. They're very common. And basically what happens is you're valid. Like when you send a transaction, it'll just go to the BAM node. And because the Solana network is using Quick, which has encryption, it will be fully encrypted as it enters the TE node. So no one will be able to like inspect the packet and see what the contents are. Like, oh, this is a radium swap. And it'll essentially, once it enters in the TE, it will sit there in memory. So it'll just sit in the server memory that's all encrypted. So you won't be able to like actually see the contents of it. And then eventually it'll just get scheduled and sequenced and sent out to the validator.
Jito has this existing block engine, an existing validator client that's going to be, I guess, replaced by this upgrade. But what will happen to the existing block engine, the existing way of doing things once BAM is sort of rolled out?
Yeah, we're going to keep it running for now. It does provide some spam protection for the network. The amount of load that we're getting on that thing is just insane right now. So yeah, we're going to keep that running. It's still processing and doing all the stuff with bundles. And then, on like a multi-month time horizon, we'll kind of see what happens. But yeah, we're going to keep it running. And yeah.
Are there bundles in BAM?
So on day 0, it'll just get bundles from the block engine. So the current bundles, in the way that those work, those will just come from the Jito Labs block engine. Definitely open to other people sending bundles, but there's a lot of like second order effects of that. because ideally you're just getting traffic that like can pay you. Like I don't want to, if I'm a validator, I don't want to spend my time on like a bunch of garbage. And the thing with bundles is that you don't have to pay if they fail. So we want to make sure that a high percentage of the bundles that we're getting are going to succeed. And so yeah, we're definitely open to it, but we need to like think about all the different consequences of enabling that.
Okay, interesting. And for those unfamiliar with bundles, it's basically 3 transactions through Jito are executed in a certain order or not at all. Is that the correct way to?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be 3 transactions. It can be up to 5. It can be
Okay.
1 to 5. And yeah, basically they're executed all or nothing. And if it fails, then you don't pay the fee for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I got us a little off topic because I was interested in the package, but
yeah.
with TEEs, to return to that, one of the implications there, from my understanding, is that it reduces toxic flow, because kind of one of the issues in Solana is that if a transaction leaks too early and a malicious validator can see it, they could sandwich attack the user. But a TEE keeps the transaction private from other validators. So maybe walk me through how exactly that all works.
Yeah. So the main benefits that we get from it are that the transaction contents are private as long as possible. So I think that will mitigate a lot of sandwiching. And the second thing is that basically the system will create a recording of everything going on inside of it. So it will say, okay, I sent transactions like ABC to this validator at this time. And you'll be able to check that recording and check the blockchain and see if there's any difference there. And so one of the problems or like challenges right now is that some of the attribution on Solana on like what's going on is super difficult. So you'll send a transaction to some validator and somehow it gets sandwiched and you don't really know what happened there. Like, how did it get sandwiched? And so this provides kind of another layer of transparency and essentially verification on what's going on. So you can imagine something where it's like, okay, this transaction, Jack sent a swap for Fartcoin. It went through BAM, and BAM says it got sent to this validator and only this validator. And I see like 2 transactions around Jack's thing that I didn't notice. And then you can kind of look closer and see what's going on. So it'll just provide a lot more transparency on like, yeah, what's going on with Jack's transactions.
We need that. We all need that. I want to know where they're going. Yeah. So then to speak maybe to like from the user's perspective, and also from the validator's perspective, does this make Solana faster or better at landing transactions? Like outside of these benefits, as you mentioned, that users might not even know are happening on the back end.
Yeah.
Like how will the people involved in the network actually see their experience change when BAM is implemented?
Yeah, the goal is definitely for things to go a lot faster. So, we're kind of in crunch mode trying to get it out right now, but we want to take a closer look at the quick networking stack and other pieces of BAM code. And then we rewrote a lot of the execution in the validator client to be what we think is like pretty fast. So we're taking a look at a lot of that stuff, trying to optimize it, hopefully upstream like what we can and what people will take. And so yeah, I think the goal is like there's a lot of your transactions will get processed fast. And then for the thing that we're still like trying to figure out right now that we need help from other people on is like this concept of plugins. So I'm sure we'll dive into that more later. But what application controlled execution is a very hot topic right now, and you can't really get it on Solana today. So everyone's just kind of stuck on this like Solana market microstructure that exists. And so one of the things that we're exploring right now to start out small is like, how would you enable ACE, application controlled execution? And that basically, for like the users that are listening, basically like I want to I have some like exchange that's running on Solana, and I want to give the market makers a like 20 millisecond or 10 millisecond advantage to takers, so that I can quote tighter on the liquidity. Like I can quote tighter on the order book to provide more liquidity without getting worried about getting picked off. And so ultimately, what that means for users is like way better pricing. For DEXs on Solana, it'll mean way more volume, and then just like a way better user experience. And hopefully that will, the goal there is to like help us rival other maybe more specialized chains. If we can build this like generic infra to enable ACE and BAM and get validators to run it, then that will enable a lot of applications to compete with some of the more specialized chains that are seeing success or launching soon.
It sounds like you're talking about one chain in particular here, Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, there's one that's been pretty successful recently, and then there's a few more that are launching. And I think that we can have both. I think that we can have like just a purely opt-in form of application controlled execution. If you want to enable it on your app, great. If you don't, great. But yeah, I think that that's kind of a interesting way to interesting thing to explore, I think. And it's like a lot of the applications that we've been talking to, like we're not really building this in a vacuum. We've talked to a lot of validators and applications, and that's like a very, very highly requested feature, not only from applications on Solana today, but we've even had conversations with applications that want to build on Solana and use this.
So let's drill down a bit on like the plugins and the Hyperliquid of it all. Because I think when I got sent this announcement, I was like, okay, this is Solana's answer to Hyperliquid, basically. You've had this upstart Perps DEX and layer 1 that is eating Solana's lunch on Perps trading, which is, a very lucrative, popular part of the crypto trading business. And so far, Solana native Perps DEXs have just not been able to keep up. And, Drift, which is Solana's maybe one of Solana's older Perp DEXs, I guess you could say, is one of the initial batch of plugins, I believe. And so it's like, okay, like you get to implement these maker speed bumps. Maybe Drift can now compete with Hyperliquid and peel users away. So like, I mean, were these BAM plugins designed with the long shadow of Hyperliquid in mind, or is that just like one possible among a range of outcomes here?
I would say like day zero, when we started thinking about this back in November, we weren't even really thinking about it. But I would say probably like February or March of this year, we were really we saw the success of some of like Hyperliquid, and we saw people that were like building new chains that were trying to kind of do the same thing. And we're like, well, we do get a lot of feature requests like, hey, can you guys add this in the block engine or like do this? And we're just like so busy fighting fires that we like can't add stuff like this. So yeah, I would say like it wasn't in the like original plan, but pretty shortly after we're like, okay, I think we can actually like do this, and it will create a lot of value, not only for applications and users, but also Solana in bring a lot of applications on. So yeah, I think we're still like trying to figure out the plugins. I think we want to figure out a way to build them like so generically that any application can permissionlessly enable it. So yeah, I think we need some help figuring this out, because I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of things we need to figure out. But I think we'll probably stay focused and like figure out one or two generic plugins that will enable ACE, and any application can sign up for it. So instead of like every application having their own plugin, they're kind of using these generic pieces inside the system.
And to maybe put it more clearly, like plugins just basically let applications decide how they want to order transactions within their app. Is that right?
Yeah.
So like Hyperliquid has these maker speed bumps where they kind of advantage the market maker, so the market maker can quote tighter spreads without losing a bunch of money at a very basic level. And because of how Solana markets work today, that would not be possible for, say, Drift to do. With these plugins, is that now possible for Drift?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the cool thing about it is that like the network effects of that for that application are pretty fast. So like, let's say you're Perp DEX and you want to do this. You have to basically go through all this stuff that we did, trying to get people to run Jito Solana, and what we're going to do basically for BAM as well, where you have to like do all this education to validators, and you have to fork a client. Which client do you fork? Is it like Jito Solana, Agave, FireDancer? So that application has one fork, and then you have another application that wants to do something similar, and they fork it. And basically with BAM, like the goal is that applications can do this in a like transparent way, basically overnight. So if Drift or any other perp DEX, like I don't really care who it is, but if they want to enable this, they can do it overnight. And so yeah, it'll give them a little more control through BAM on what the kind of the priority is on certain transactions.
Incubated by Polygon and GSR, Katana is something different, a purpose-built DeFi chain that's focused on giving the best experience possible. It does this by sustainably generating deep liquidity and sustainable real yield. Katana is built from the ground up, with DeFi mechanics to keep your bags from just sitting idle. All you need to do is use your favorite protocol, and Katana mechanisms do the rest of the work for you. Katana is launching with a notable ecosystem of primitives, assets, and partners including Morpho, Sushi, Lombard, Chainlink, and Yearn. Katana is a DeFi-first chain, built for deep liquidity and real yield, by redirecting chain revenue back to active DeFi users. The 1 billion CAT campaign is live. Bridge and deposit directly into vaults in one simple click, and start earning immediately on your ETH, BTC, USD, and more. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions apply. Do your own research. Is there a timeline on the plugins? Because I know BAM is still rolling out. Will the plugins, so like Drift's, initial plugin, which I think it's one of the first partners, will that come out like simultaneously with BAM, or will prioritizing cancels take longer? Like what's the expected timeline there?
Yeah. So yeah, where we're at today, Jito is the only one running BAM on mainnet and testnet. So no one else is running it today. We are still wrapping up some audit fixes and everything. So we're going to get those fixes on. We've been running it on like private clusters and that we spin up to kind of test everything and iterate pretty fast. And then we're going to get some people running on testnet over the next like week. Hopefully this week we'll get people on testnet, and then run a testnet for a few weeks and like really battle test it. And then we'll move to mainnet. And so hopefully in a few weeks, there's like a small amount of stake running it on mainnet, and we'll kind of experiment and figure out what people want from there.
So the plugins will go alongside the limited mainnet deployment.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, there's still like a bunch of stuff to do. So we'll see how it falls in the priorities. But I think the first plugin that enables ACE should be pretty simple to implement in there. So I think that will provide a ton of value for applications. It's relatively simple. So hopefully we can have it live on mainnet pretty soon. And then from there, we want to like slowly expand the types of plugins. and hopefully they're just generic enough to where like any application can use it.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to letting apps order their transactions, the plugins also generate revenue for the apps, right? So walk me through how that piece works.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like if you think about it, if market makers or applications can bring more volume, for instance, like prioritizing the market makers over the takers, and you get tighter quotes, then there will be more volume on chain. Applications will make more because of that. And yeah, there will be some like TBD fee model that's associated with running the plugin just to avoid kind of DOS attacks. So applications will make more from it, and the stakers and validators on Solana will also make more from those plugins.
And in my view, the kind of the significance of the revenue there is, something a drum I was beating for a little bit of time is, hey, what's to prevent Pump Fund from launching Pump Chain as like a Solana L2 basically, because it creates all this revenue that largely flows through the Jito block engine and goes to Solana validators. But maybe Pump Fund says, hey, I want that revenue for myself. So is this a way to hypothetically, I don't actually think Pump Fund wants to launch a chain, but say it did. Does this kind of appease them and say, hey, you can actually stay on Solana and see more of the revenue that you're creating?
Yeah, potentially. I think this is more, at least the way we're initially thinking about it is like, this is more for hardcore trading applications. So whether it's like a prop AMM or central limit order book or something like that, the microstructure of that market is very important. And so I would say that's more for them, as opposed to someone like a Pump.Fund. But they could certainly, if they think that there's something valuable, they could certainly like find a way to build it in here. And yeah.
But it does, I mean, it allows apps to create revenue from the sequencing of transactions that they previously would have gone to validators, right?
Well, they will still pay priority fees. Like all these transactions will still pay priority fees. So, yeah.
So I guess I'm asking like this like new revenue stream that the plugin that the app now has. Where was that money going before?
I would say it's probably going to. It really depends on the application. Like, probably some of it's going to takers. If it's like arbitrage, some of it might be going to priority fees, things like that. But there's actually there's a good amount of arbitrage on Solana, but it's not as much as we thought it was. It seems like most of the fees are just like people trading meme coins, things like that.
Interesting. When at what point did you see that there was not as much arbitrage as you thought?
Probably like last year. Yeah. I mean, aggregators are getting really good. The chain's getting faster. And so I think, I think what we thought would actually generate a lot of REV didn't actually generate a lot of REV. It's actually just like users that want to trade meme coins.
What did you think would generate a lot of REV?
I think we thought at the time it would just be like the traditional types of MEV. So arbitrage, liquidations, things like that. Yeah, I think it's just a sign that like the chain's getting more mature. I think that it's a good sign.
There isn't like free money lying around, in other words.
Yeah, there's definitely, there's a good amount, but it's not as much as we thought it would be.
Okay.
And yeah, I think like kind of looking at that and what we were doing in 2024, it's like, can we just like create something that like, instead of focusing on this, can we just create something that provides a ton of value for apps and users instead of like this kind of like arbitrage and other stuff that's going on in Mev land.
Interesting. And so if some of these funds that previously had gone to arbitrage or whatever it is are now going to apps, the one thought would be that they can now share it with their tokens, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we've seen how much buyback has Hype done.
A ton.
A ton.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the goal is like if we can get super tight spreads on Solana and get a lot of volume going, then that will enable applications to generate a lot of fees, and hopefully they share those fees with the token holders, and we'll see like a mass repricing of Solana DeFi and also Solana too. Like I think I would love if like people would just there's a lot of other like non-technical barriers that we need to get here, but like if you are an institution and you want to buy Sol, you don't just look at sexes. You like go on Solana and you look, and you can get really deep, like super deep liquidity here, and get very good execution as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One other piece, I guess, while we're touching on just how value flows around in BAM, I believe BAM also changes the kind of take rate on Jito tips, where labs used to have some take rate from the block engine, and now all the funds are going to the DAO. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's not necessarily 100% related to BAM, but we decided to squeeze it in. There will be a JIP in the next few days on that. We've already announced it, so it's not, I think it's fair to talk about, but yeah, I would say that like a lot of the regulatory stuff in the US has kind of led to weird setups for revenue. People were scared to send revenue to protocols and token holders because they were concerned about being classified as security. And that was pretty real for a lot of people. Like I've definitely lost sleep during the last administration, like thinking like, am I gonna get in trouble or something? We thought about, my wife and I actually talked multiple times about leaving the US. So it's like pretty real. And yeah, now it's like we saw the crypto news today that like most tokens are not securities. And I would say the regulatory tailwind is like definitely in our favor. So given all that, like we decided that we want to start sending all the fees that we're making at Jito Labs to the DAO. And like there's some sub DAO that will figure out what to do with that money, whether it's buybacks or, you know, whatever it is. I'm excited to see what they're cooking. But yeah, this just aligns like the token holders and the value that's created much more than the previous kind of setup. So yeah, we're super excited about that. I think a lot of token holders will be pretty excited about that too.
Is that like the ideal setup for a crypto company in your view, where like like the labs has some token allocation, and but all the revenue goes back into the token, and so labs, I guess, is funded through the token, rather than the kind of weird way things are done now, where there's a token but there's no revenue to it and so forth.
Yeah. I would say we're definitely still in the first, well, maybe not the first inning, but I'd say we're still pretty early. I would say that is pretty advantageous. The thing that, how do I say this? Like, I think everyone's still trying to figure it out. And the thing that we want to balance is like, if there's an acquisition, like you want to have cash on hand and you want to have tokens on hand to grow the protocol. And if you want to do an acquisition, like where does that cash come from? And like, you don't want to go to the DAO and like, you can't really, there's just things that you have to do, like running a protocol, that you can't discuss in a public forum, or you can't, like the counterparties that you're dealing with, it's like all confidential, and there's like MNPI.
Probably, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, we saw some of this with the Jupiter DAO.
Yes,
like
exactly.
People were discussing salaries, and like it's like we don't need to talk about that. Like I think we hopefully have shown that we can like execute and create a lot of value, and like I don't think random people need to be deciding like what the salaries are for like the like very good engineers and ops and all the other people that we have. So yeah, I'm kind of just rambling at this point, but it's interesting. I think the thing, like you want to send most of the value, if not all of it, to token holders, but also like when you think about acquisitions and like how you get cash for that, you probably don't want to go to the DAO for that. So like how do you get that cash and everything is like kind of a question.
So you put this thing out into the wild, I guess, a week and a half ago now, or not put it out, but announced that it exists a week and a half ago. What's the reception been like from key stakeholders? So like validators you've talked to, are they planning to adopt BAM? Are there criticisms? Like just what is the general feedback you've received been like?
Yeah. I would say overall the feedback's been super positive from we previewed this a while ago with some of the validators. They were super on board and super excited about it. Some of the ones mentioned in the announcement, and then some of the others that aren't mentioned in there. I would say a lot of the applications are pretty excited too that we've been talking to. So same story, like some of the ones in the announcement, some of the ones that aren't. And the cool thing is like these are applications. Some of these applications are on Solana. Some of them were maybe on other chains and are thinking about coming to Solana. And this makes it a lot more interesting to them. And then, yeah, I think there's been like some criticism, and I think it's definitely a big like proposal and a big change, but like we've been on Solana since like the very beginning in like 2021. Basically, like spent all of our time in like basically every working hour. I'm thinking about Solana and how to make it more successful. So I think a lot of those like there's just like some weird takes online, but I think that like hopefully we're building something that people want. I think they do want it, and we'll just have to like prove that we're doing that through our actions. And so yeah, I think definitely like an action oriented company and want to create a lot of value. So that's just what we're going to focus on. And like, yeah, being a builder in crypto, you kind of have to have pretty thick skin. There's a lot of like crazy takes from people, and people are just like really crazy. I'm sure you know as a reporter, but yeah, you gotta have thick skin, and like some of the feedback's good, and then some of it you just kind of have to like ignore and just keep building and stay focused.
Yeah, there's some unhinged commenters, doing the hardest job of all, which is podcasting. But to summarize, I think some of the critical takes, I think a lot of them revolve around Jito's centrality to Solana, where it's like a lot of transaction flow goes through Jito, and BAM is sort of expanding Jito's importance to the transaction ordering process, or kind of how Solana blocks are architected. So I guess what's your response to that when people say like Jito has basically become too central, it's too powerful of an actor?
Yeah. I would say that like it's open source code. It's just code, and like there's no requirement to run this. We hope that people run it because it's good, and like all of it will be open source, so you can look at it. If you want to run it, you can. If you don't have to. But yeah, I think we hopefully have proven ourselves to like be super focused on growing Solana. We think that this provides a lot of value for the chain and applications and users. And so we hope people will run it and hope that we can keep building things and keep building products that people want.
Do you think that Jito can and should be the only like transaction processing infrastructure? I guess you're not really the only, but the very dominant one for a long time, and there's no risk to Solana. Like, to you, is that an okay state of affairs?
I mean, I think it's like BAM is just another scheduler. It's like the Agave scheduler or the Firedancer scheduler. I think of it just like another scheduler that has more features in it. So I think if you think about it like that, then there's not really any issues from it. And people, like, no one's forcing anyone to run it.
And I guess on the Jito side of things as well, one new thing that BAM is introducing is you have these BAM nodes, which to my understanding are distinct from Solana validator nodes. They're specifically running this network. So I guess, like, why create this network of nodes, and who do you expect will be running nodes in the BAM network?
Yeah. So yeah, there will be a separate set of nodes, and the goal is to get many people running these. So by the end of the year, we'd like to see close to 100 nodes and like many different operators running these things around the world. So it's not just Jito Labs, it's many people. And I think the reason for that is that we can, like, if you want to do ACE or you want to have some privacy involved, you need to have TEs and you need to have attribution on these things. And it's really hard to get that when there's like a ton of different validators running different forms of hardware. Maybe they're running Intel or AMD or whatever it is. And so there's definitely that element to it. And then these things will be pretty high performance too. So like no potato rule. So I think they'll be pretty high performance. They'll have a lot of bandwidth going into them. And so we think that that will offer a better service than what's currently available. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of questions around some of this stuff. There's going to be ecosystem advisor committee. We're still trying to like figure out what that looks like. We don't just want to like be building this alone. The goal is to like enable this, create a lot of value, and get more than just Jito involved in the decision-making process. So yeah, if you're interested in trying to help us figure this out, then definitely would love to hear from you.
Do you think it's most probable that, like, I'm trying to think here, Kiln and INF Stones and some of these like professional validator operators, like, would those be candidates to be BAM nodes? Like, if you had to play out the most realistic scenario, like, who actually are these people down the line when you have the 50 to 100 BAM nodes that you're shooting for?
Yeah. I would say it's professional operators that are very long-term aligned with Solana's growth. So we don't want we don't want any people that are like going to be doing malicious things running these things. We want people that are like super dedicated to Solana's success. So it could be one of the ones you mentioned. It could be other ones. It could be like some teenage kid that wants to run one that's like he's like shown a lot of promise and doing good things. So yeah, I think yeah, there will be multiple operators and they'll be like really good at what they do.
Sort of to move us towards a conclusion here. I just want to ask about your long-term vision, how you see things playing out on Solana. So say you roll BAM out, you have the decentralized network of BAM nodes, you open source the code. A number of validators have begun running the upgraded Jito Solana client. Where does that put Solana relative to where it is today? Like how will the status quo look different?
I would say much healthier markets on chain and much more liquidity. Hopefully we can actually see order books be successful on chain. There's been a lot of prop AMMs that have kind of popped up in the last few weeks and months. Hopefully those will be more successful on chain. And I would just say like better outcomes for users, and also like less people wanting to, I think like one of the reasons why people kind of go off and like try to create their own chain, especially some of the Solana native teams, is because they want to have a little more control over the market structure on their application. So they want to build an order book or whatever it is. And hopefully the BAM is like enough for them to come back, and like some of the reasons for launching these other chains just like goes away. And yeah, I think if there's a lot of builders on Solana, a lot of people using it, more stocks traded on chain, more meme coins, whatever it is, like people are just doing it on Solana.
Mm-hmm. And I would think that like the implication there is just that you get a broader range of assets, because you mentioned, you expected a lot more arbitrage and other things to be generating RAV on Solana, but it's really largely just meme coins and has been for a long time. And so does that lead us to a world where things other than meme coins are generating meaningful RAV on Solana?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think securities and like a bunch of other stuff is the goal. Hopefully there's some like, I think Robert Leshner tweeted this today about like doing IPOs on chain. I think like chain native IPOs would be huge. And yeah, hopefully like everything is trading on Solana 24/7. And that would just make Solana super successful. And then also just there would be a lot of REV, of course, from that.
Yeah. And maybe to close us here, I think a thread that's gone through this whole conversation is just that you really want Solana to succeed, and not like SVM chains and not Hyperliquid, maybe not like to the exclusion of these other things, but basically you want to make things work so that whatever you want to trade on chain, you can do it on Solana. Why is that vision important?
Yeah, I think there's a few fold there. One is that I think Solana is one of the only architectures to this point that we've seen that truly scales, that's like in production today. I think it was doing like 200 TPS in like 2021, 2022. Now we're doing like 600, 700. So we've just seen like insane growth in speed. I think there's a lot more optimizations that can be made to like double, triple, 10x that. And what that means is like, yeah, the tech's cool, but that just means that the fees are going to be really cheap and anyone will be able to participate. No one will be priced out compared to like Ethereum and even some of the L2s that have like multi-dollar fees at like crazy spikes. So it just like lowers the barrier to entry for everyone, whether you're like someone like myself trading meme coins or someone in like a third world country that is trying to receive or send like some stable coin from their family somewhere else. So yeah, I would say like that is pretty important. And then yeah, we've just invested a lot of time and a lot of money and like just a lot of energy trying to make Solana as successful as we can. We built our whole company around Solana. Basically the last pretty soon here, the last like 4 years of my life have been focused 100% on Solana. And so like, it's kind of a personal thing now, where it's like this thing, like it's got to succeed. I'm not going to throw those 4 years down the drain. Like, we launched Jito Sol. We're doing a lot of activity with trying to advance Solana and its institutional side and the BD stuff, and talking to SEC about Solana and like all this stuff. And like it's kind of personal now. Like we gotta do the best we can to make it successful.
It's personal now. Boom.
Yeah.
That is all the time we have for today. But Lucas, it's been fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on Lightspeed.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone. If you made it this far, for listening, we'd love if you gave us a like, a 5-star review, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us YouTube, X, Spotify, Apple, all the places where you listen. Give us a follow. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love if you'd share it with a friend, and we'll see you all again very soon.